Welcome to the Smark Foundation podcast. I am Aaron. This is Adam.
Hello, all. Happy wrestling.
And we are here with your weekly coverage of the WWE and AEW Big Four, as well as a Call It in the Ring segment and our lovely little intro as we're doing here. Adam, you want to run down the socials for him?
All right. The majority of our posting and our social media presence is, discussed last week, going to be on Blue Sky from here on out. We'll still keep our handles on Twitter, that hellscape, but we won't. God knows we don't need us deactivating those accounts and have some troll taking over. But for the most part, if you want to find us, you can find us on Blue Sky. This podcast's official handle is at SMARK FNDN podcast.bsky.social. Aaron's is aaronsmark.bsky.social. Mine is Adam Smark FNDN pod.bsky.social. It's long and complicated. I'm sorry. You can slow down this feed if you want to get that again, but that is where you can find us. We are terminally online. If you have any questions or things that you'd like to suggest we talk about, or things that you just want us to discuss as they happen, even if we may not be live tweeting as we watch, we're usually watching the shows as they're happening, at least maybe offset by as much as an hour, but we're there. Get a hold of us. We would love to engage a little bit more with our followers. That would be a really nice goal that we could live up to, because honestly, it's not really been there as much as I would have hoped. That's not on you guys, for the record. I'm not blaming anybody. That's not what we do here. We don't blame our fans for anything. They've got families and they've got precious time. But we would admittedly like to interact a little bit more. Feel free to hit us up. Our DMs are open if you want it not to be public too. So please do so. We would love to engage and possibly, all things on the table, possibly mine you guys for ideas for the Call in the Ring segment on occasion.
For sure. But yeah, that's our social. Make sure you catch us at Linktree at Smark Foundation Podcast, and that will give you all of our links to our store and our other podcast platforms like Spotify and the RSS feed and everything like that. It'll also take you directly to any of our Blue Sky feeds if you want to access them there. And other than that, I think maybe a big shout out to our new Blue Sky followers. Anybody who's followed us in the last week or two and is joining us now, thanks for being here. We really appreciate having you. And to our regular followers week to week and the new ones we've added recently, thank you as well for being here.
Yes, and for our continued Finnish fan, whoever you may be, Kiitos for following us. I learned a word for y'all. Tell your friends. So yeah, I mean, wrestling this week I thought was overall pretty good. I was very happy with most of the content that we got, at least on the AEW side. I know that we were talking before we started recording about how you really liked NXT this week, which you don't normally watch.
Yeah, I really did enjoy NXT this week. A lot of representation from the women's division. They go really hard over there. The men were really impressive too. That's not to discount them at all. But I feel like as far as everything I watched this week, which was both companies and 5 different shows, that I think NXT
That's a lot of time to give up, by the way.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I pretty much enjoyed everything I watched this week, so I wasn't, I didn't feel like I was put out by any of it. So
isn't it nice when the time you put in actually pays you back?
Yeah, when you feel rewarded for giving it the time, yeah.
Could you imagine if we were doing just a straight up WWE podcast in like 2018? Like how much of a drag that would be. Like it just, I can't even. I'm so glad that we're in a new wrestling boom period. Not just for the fact that you know, it's allowing us to do this podcast, but it's also because holy cow, wrestling on all sides is good. Like if you're a fan of professional wrestling, you are being fed well.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a great time to be a fan. I mean, whether you're a fan of, Mexican wrestling or Japanese wrestling or American wrestling, Canada's really gaining a huge foothold. They've got a ton of their own promotions now, a ton of big ones. Where we're not before Stampede was kind of what people knew long and short on the American side of Canadian wrestling. Now, I mean, we're talking about WWID prospects from Canada and tons of indies there. You got the Brit Rest scene. I really think, regardless of what country you're in, if wrestling's hot, wrestling's hot. But also, if you're in this day and age, if you're a digital wrestling fan like us, like we are,
Yeah.
and most of the people that probably follow this podcast, and most of the people that are probably wrestling fans in general these days, because wrestling fans have a tendency to. I mean, I remember, you know, back in the days when you had, when you pirated DVDs and stuff like that, that
Mm.
there was a whole scene of guys who were making DVDs. And I think there's still a couple of them around, like IVP or some of those guys
Well, with
where,
the most hardcore fans, I mean, it goes way back further than that. I mean, the reason that the ECW audience was as knowledgeable as it were was because most of them were those hardcore tape traders.
yeah,
Like if
but
you, oof, VCR days,
yeah, but wrestling
talking about
fans have a
dating us
history.
here.
I mean, I remember back in the tape trader days, like I could get like Noah or NJPW or like
Mhm.
War or something like that, or the deathmatch stuff.
Yeah.
But that was about it. Now they're,
Well, that was
now,
what was very, very different to what you were finding here. You're always going to
yeah.
find what what has the most interest in an environment like that is what you cannot get at home. You
Mm.
couldn't get the stuff they were doing in Wrestle and Romance here. You couldn't get frontier martial arts wrestling deathmatch style here.
Oh,
Not
no,
even
hell
in
no.
ECW for the most part,
Yeah.
really.
The stuff they did, even at the worst, the stuff they did was tame compared to FMW's.
And even tamer. Like if you were really that hardcore in the late 80s and early 90s, where else were you going to get a hold of Joshi? Actual incredible, way ahead of its time, uh, just innovative women's wrestling that shaped the entire industry into what it is today and doesn't get the credit for
Mm.
it.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling fans have always had a way of sniffing out everything out there for us, and so now in the digital age, it's just so much easier. But there's so much more. Like it's provided, places with an audience that it may not have had before. There are companies that subside off of their pay-per-view sales because they have an audience that cannot be in their building, every couple of months or so for a pay-per-view. So they're watching, they're paying $5 on YouTube or IPPV or whatever it is that they're watching it on.
Yeah.
And these companies are thriving because of that. They're able to book much bigger talent than they would if, just off of their local crowds. So, I mean, yeah, wrestling's a hot thing right now. I still don't think we're at like 99, 2000 level yet.
I mean,
But
that's the difference of popularity versus profitability. In
yeah.
profitability terms, it is no contest. It
Oh
is
no, no
far more
contest.
profitable now.
But that's because they're
But in
able to
terms,
command things. They know
yeah,
like, hey, this is the kind of crowd we can bring into a place. And so this is the kind
this
of
is the
money
Saudi
we can
blood money we can
command.
bring in.
Yeah, well, I mean, on one side, yeah. But I mean,
But
we could talk about Jacksonville blood money too.
that's
Because
true.
God
I
forbid
spades a spade. Yeah.
God forbid I buy an AEW title to make sure that the Jaguars get to stay open for another year.
Ugh.
Now I'm a
Their
Texans
title
fan, so
belts
I
are
don't want to do that.
their title belts are
Expensive.
so the replica belts are so overpriced too.
Oh God,
Like
they
they
are.
look gorgeous, but like I don't want to be paying like $500 for that. Get out of here. No way.
Yeah, if they weren't
No way.
five, six, $700 for a really good replica title belt, having held so many actual like custom made title belts in my hand,
Right.
um, if they weren't five, six, $700, I'd probably have a shelf right behind me, with a bunch of them
Yeah.
on it. But they're $700. It's like I could buy a title belt that I will literally never do anything with, but put on, like, I'll put it on
You can have
once.
it custom made to your own specifications and designs for less than
Yeah,
some of
yeah,
these AEW
yeah.
replica belts.
I'm doing a custom belt for my fantasy football league for next year.
Yeah.
Because my brother was in the league and he passed away. And
Mm.
so I'm making a memorial title for him that's going to be a real deal, like custom, handmade, hand tooled wrestling title belt because that's what we have now. We just have one of those crappy, like, generic fantasy football league champion
Yeah.
belts. But I'm gonna make like a real deal, like tooled and terried freaking wrestling belt for
Yeah.
this league. It's going to cost me about $400, and
Yeah.
it's not going to be crusted in diamonds and gold, but it's going to be beautiful. And I don't understand why AEW or WWE couldn't some, but maybe I don't know. Maybe they're paying comparatively that price that I'm having to pay to produce these things. And then
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they're not. I'm sure they're done them by the thousands or hundreds of thousands. So they're probably paying $100 a head for them, or something
Yeah.
like that. And then they're charging us a ridiculous amount. This is why I don't buy a lot of wrestling merch. Like I buy them from indie guys, but indie guys really know their audience. They know what you want, or they
Yeah.
know their audience, whether you want it or not. Like this one indie guy. So the last show I went to, there was two guys at a table right next to each other. And they're two guys I'm familiar with, but I hadn't caught up with their merch game in a while, you know?
Yeah.
So I go over to the merch tables and I'm kind of looking around as I do. Most of the time I go, I'll have like a 20 in my hand so I can pick up a t-shirt or something like that. But a lot of times being a referee and having worked in the business, a lot of those guys will be like, man, you'd look really good in a 2X, one of mine. And I'm like, all right. And they'll just give it to me. And so I'll put it on right there. Like, hey, check out these awesome
Yeah.
shirts. It's so comfy, like I'll just be standing
Yeah.
there with people saying that shit. So maybe they'll get a couple more. But
Yeah.
I go to one guy and he's a guy I've known this guy. He was at my very first training session and I've known him the entire time I've been in the business. He's got grinders and trays and lighters with his picture on them. And I'm like, okay, this guy's got a little weed kit for wrestling fan. This guy knows his audience, at least half of it. At least half of it. But then I go to the next guy who's right next to him on the other half of the table. And he's got soap and deodorant with his logo on it. And I'm like, know your fucking audience.
Yeah. That's kind of a backhanded way of
He's a
doing it.
heel, to be fair.
But
He's a heel.
I mean,
So it makes sense.
I've been to plenty of indie shows, which we'll talk about later. Actually, there's a preview for Call in the Ring.
See me
But
doing that thing that comedians do where
yeah,
they loop
yeah,
shit around.
yeah, that's what we're doing. Uh, but yeah, it's that is something that is true, and because it is true, it's become kind of a running joke online. Like, guys, let me make a personal plea to everybody.
Oh man.
Even if you don't think that your hygiene standards are poor, even if they're not actually poor, before you go to a wrestling event, please take a shower, put on deodorant. If you brush your teeth, um, even if you plan to drink beer, I know beer and minty toothpaste doesn't exactly go well together, but please do it. Um, wear clean clothes. Uh, everybody's gonna sweat. Usually these venues are little sweat boxes. It's gonna happen. There is a point to which we will forgive you, but good heavens, come in there as fresh and clean as you can, please. Like, if you need any more, if you need any more inspiration, you never know. Trust me when I say you never know when you're gonna meet your future partner. Like, you never know that. Come summertime fresh, please, please.
Yes.
Not just for everybody else's sake, although yes, for everyone else's sake, but for your sake, because you only stand to benefit. and everybody else will like you so much more if you do. So for your friend, Aaron, your heel friend with the bars of soap, that's not a heel. That's a friend giving you tough love.
Dude, his merch game is always on point, but this is the first time I've ever seen anybody selling deodorant and soap.
Dude, that's an absolute killer idea that every freaking independent wrestler should steal from him
Oh, they
shamelessly.
should say. And guys, AK47.clothing.co for all your merch needs. Just shameless plug on my own business there. Mm. So
But
yeah, I mean, his merch game's on point, but you know what? I agree with Adam 100%, and I'm not going to elaborate any further because I will actually elaborate on that very point during our Call It in the Ring segment because we were going to be talking about some indie wrestling stuff, and there is a very specific show I'm going to talk about in my list that will touch on this very subject for a very terrible reason. So, um, but trust me, it's entertaining. I'm not going to be knocking anybody. I'm just going to let y'all
yeah.
know that I was also one of those people because we all in this venue were one of those people. So yeah,
Fair enough.
we'll get there.
Fair
So
enough.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, that. Oh God, man, yeah, the merge game with this guy was on point. But I think we've gone through our little,
Yep. Ring
hits for the
introductions
week.
are over.
The ring
Ring
introductions are over.
introductions are over.
So
And
let's
it's
time
time
to lock
to
it up.
lock up.
Yes. All right. So lock it up with Raw this week. Um, man. Okay. So I'm gonna say and preface all of this right now with I thought Raw was really good this week. Um, I guess what I could say is that maybe it wasn't as good as last week was such a banger, man. It's
Yeah.
gonna be hard to live up to that standard week by week. I understand that as a wrestling
Yeah.
fan, and I've seen it firsthand. It's really hard to get hot and stay as hot as you are at the hottest point. It's almost impossible to stay
That
there
goes for
static.
literally anything in life
Literally
that you
every
are doing
company.
over a long period of time.
Yeah.
It's to be
So
expected.
we start off with a Gunther promo, and he comes out and he's talking, and then he gets interrupted by Damian Priest. This is going to be a big like. Okay, first of all, Damian Priest and Gunther have a killer dynamic between one another. I think it might be because when you stand them face to face, Damian
They're
Priest
so
is
different.
he is either about the same height as Gunther or just a little bit shorter, and actually bigger than Gunther is. He's just built bigger than Gunther.
He's got those
He,
wide
yeah,
shoulders. Yeah.
Gunther does not tower over him or look intimidating in his presence in any way. So
Yeah.
that makes it a very good equal standpoint that we come from to begin with. But now Gunther's taken, he is the world champion, but we just come off Crown Jewel. He's taken that L to Cody clean.
Mm-hmm.
And now Damian Priest has something to work with. And my God, I know we don't talk about it very often with people in the main event scene maximizing their minutes,
Yeah.
but my boy Damian Priest maximized his fucking minutes, man.
Yeah.
This promo where he did about Gunther losing his aura because Gunther took that clean L to Cody, and Damian was not shy about bringing it up and saying you've lost your aura, you're not that guy you used to be. And he's like, you conquered it and now you're coasting and you've kind of lost some of your confidence because you took that L to Cody and we, I can see you struggling with yourself inside and I'm gonna beat you for that title. Basically at
Yeah.
Survivor Series because I that's what's happening. It's gonna be him and Damian at Survivor Series. I'm 100% behind it. I'm not upset about it at all. There are other people I would like to see fight for the world heavyweight title. I was really expecting a CM Punk appearance tonight. Spoiler for the rest of my review: he does not show up. CM Punk did not show up. I was I am not the only person. I know a lot of other people, especially in my social media circles, were expecting CM Punk shows up tonight post Saudi shows
Yeah.
and he calls out Gunther, and that's our next, that's our Survivor Series um, program. And we thought that mostly because before Punk went away, from because he tried to cut off Drew McIntyre at match 2, and he called out Gunther, and Drew came
Mm-hmm.
back and was like, no, 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 we're doing 3, and here's Hell in a Cell. You know, so he already had called out Gunther, so he thought, okay, he's going to come back post Crown Jewel. He's going to call out Gunther. That's our program. That's not how it's going. I don't know if CM Punk fits into this. Now, I'm not saying he couldn't just easily come back and slot himself in somewhere. He could. It'd be pretty shitty with 3 weeks of booking. I think he understands that better than almost anybody. So he probably won't insert himself here. There's only 4 weeks to go to Survivor Series. WWE has been telling a lot of these stories for a while already. A lot of the stuff going into Survivor Series, I'm really hoping for some blow-offs. Some of these stories have been going on for a while. Gunther and Damian Priest is a revisit because Gunther won the title from Damian
And
Priest.
Priest never got a rematch.
And
Yeah.
Priest never got his rematch. Yeah. So this is kind of a revisit. I mean, yes, we're coming to a logical conclusion of said story, despite there being tons of crap in between where they just weren't talking to each other or dealing with each other at all. Um, so this is, it's logical, but there's a lot of big stories I think that are getting blow-offs at Survivor Series that Punk just isn't part of any of these that are long term being told. Like, unless they drug him and Drew back on TV right now and we're like, hey, we're going to do 4, which I don't think they're going to do. I don't think they should. Please don't. I know you hear me. Please do not. But unless they did that, there's no place for either of them right
they
now.
can always like revisit a little bit of the magic in the Royal Rumble match. That's part of what it's for. Like you can have them stare down and beat the crap out of each other for 2 minutes and have one eliminate the other if you want. Probably Punk eliminating Drew, if we're
I
being
would
honest.
imagine that's how it goes. Yeah,
Because if you go the other way, then it continues.
Yeah,
If the heel does that to the baby face, the baby face has to win, right? So like
Punk wouldn't let it go.
That's
We know that from his character. He just wouldn't let it go. He'd be worse than the
How
bracelet.
could he? No. But I did hear a theory that led me to think maybe they're piling up Survivor Series, a lot of blow-ups at Survivor Series because they want to make that first Raw on Netflix super duper huge and special. The theory that I heard was maybe they're saving Punk's return, or at least in ring return, for after Survivor Series to lead to a match with Gunther for the belt on that show.
I would be okay with that. My prediction was actually because the Netflix thing never really comes to the forefront of my mind. Like, I know that they're going to Netflix in January, and I know that I'm easily going to switch over because I already have a Netflix subscription.
Right.
I'm going to save any judgment I have about Netflix as far as how that's going to work until Christmas Day, when my Houston Texans play the Baltimore Ravens live on Netflix, and see if it's near as bad as that freaking Tyson fight thing.
Dude, I heard so much bad crap about that.
I have had illegal streams of UFC fights work better than the paid for Netflix stream for Tyson Paul. It was so bad, dude. Like, I'll put it this way. I'm going to cop to it. I'll cop to it right now. I watched an illegal stream of a UFC show because I will not support a company financially that supports Mango Mussolini. And I just turned it on to watch the John Jones fight. And the stream worked beautifully and perfectly the entire time I was watching it. And I cannot say that. I did not get to watch the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight on Netflix until an hour after it was over. And I only know it was over because my son came in and said I had the fight spoiled for me. And I said, don't tell me what it is. Just go back to your room. I'm pissed off at Netflix right now. And then finally got Netflix to work. It was about an hour after the fight had ended. I finally got to watch it. And I want my hour and a half back. Although the women's fight for the title and the men's fight for the title before Paul and Tyson were bangers. They were bangers. I know we don't do boxing here, but holy crap, they were awesome, man.
Like, I generally don't really give a crap about boxing, but anybody can appreciate a good fight, even if they don't know the nuances or whatever. And from everything that I heard about that women's fight, except that everybody
except the headbutt.
wasn't well, everybody was annoyed about the finish because apparently everybody thought the other lady should have won.
Yeah, yeah, the
But
other lady should have won because the lady who won was headbutting the shit out of her the entire time, and she
yeah,
busted her open with her head. She didn't even punch her open,
so
and that,
that's like I saw the eyebrow, the
yeah,
gash over her
the
eyebrow
lady who lost
online.
was was a predator, dude. She basically followed this lady around the ring and dealt her punishment at every turn to the point where this lady decided, okay, now we're gonna fight up close. And every time they
Yeah,
got close enough, she headbutted her. And I mean, a couple of times it wasn't intentional, but that last one that busted her open was definitely intentional.
you don't get an accidental 4-inch gash, like you just
Yeah,
don't.
they were also fighting orthodox versus southpaw, so they're shoulder to
Okay,
shoulder this way, and
right.
oh, man, it was they were head to head close anyway. But yeah,
Yeah, I heard
they got
nothing but
down.
great things about the quality of that fight,
But
though.
anyway, yeah.
Like,
So I'm waiting to see like if I'm gonna be excited about Raw being on Netflix to see if they fix things for the football games that are coming up,
yeah,
because those will be kind of a middle ground. The football games will probably get about as many viewers on Netflix as Raw will, so that'll be a good comparison. That fight
they
is
would probably get
got way
more, I
more.
would think.
That
But
fight got way more viewers than anything else on Netflix is going to
yeah, it
get.
was
And
like
the only
53 million users or something, like
yeah,
some ludicrous number.
but the only
You
thing
know,
they had really streamed live before that was a Cat Williams comedy special, which I watched live, but
yeah,
it worked fine.
yeah,
But it definitely didn't have
that doesn't
near as
stand up
many. Yeah, no,
to
no.
the
He's kind
drawing
of
power of Mike Tyson and the desire of all of America to see Jake Logan get his face pounded in.
which I
Unfortunately,
think I'm
didn't
just gonna have to
happen. Yeah.
rewatch the Tommy Fury fight over and over again to get that. Anyway, back to Raw. So um Priest versus Gunther, huge up. I'm ready for this bout. That was Damian Priest's best uh that's his best promo in this
I'm
whole thing.
so I'm so glad for him. I remember seeing him for the first time on a Ring of Honor show that we pay per view that we streamed as Punishment Martinez, and he was so skinny back then, but he
Mm-hmm.
was doing like all this stuff. You know, he's a 6'7" guy, like doing tope con hero over the top rope. You know, not even touching the rope. You know, like who is
Mm-hmm.
this guy? Like I was so glad when he signed with WWE because like this is gonna be a guy, and he's exceeded all of my expectations. So
Right.
good for him.
Next big thing I liked, Damage Control had a trios match against Pure Fusion Collective because it was a trios match because Dakota Kai is back from injury.
Terrible name. Hate
Um,
that name so
I was
much.
just about to say that down. I still hate the name Pure Fusion Collective. But I like the stable. I mean, they're all three. They have this like MMA air of like legitimacy to them. So I think it
Yeah,
really helps when somebody beats them. It doesn't happen very often. They usually run roughshod over everybody. Pure Fusion Collector, they went down. Damage Control took the win in this. Of course, because Dakota Kai is returned.
yeah,
Happy to see her back as always. She
yeah. I
is
like
one of the
Dakota.
few people that like from before I started watching for the podcast that I am familiar with because I was kind of watching when Damage Control was a thing. So always good to see Dakota Kai back. Um, let's see what else here. I'm just kind of going through my notes. Kofi Kingston versus Pete Dunne up as a match, but mostly just a vehicle to kind of further the tension between the New Day. They're getting to the point now where it is obvious that this is going to happen at the 10th anniversary thing. They're
Yeah,
telegraphing it so hard. I
yeah,
don't know if I kind of hope they swerve me somehow still, but I mean, it's getting to the point where like Xavier's being such a dick on TV that I'm like, quit being a dick, dude. Like,
yeah,
stop. Like, even I know he's just playing a character because he's a super nice dude. I interact with him all the
yeah.
time on like Twitter and Blue Sky and stuff like that. And he's like so nice and
Yeah,
so
he's a
interactive and
great
like
guy.
cool dude. But on TV, he is being such a dick that I'm just like, God, stop being a dick. So we're getting to that point where like I was already kind of like, can y'all pull the trigger on this? I'm giving them the over until the 10th anniversary show, but I'm pretty sure that's gonna be it, man. Like,
I
so
really, I hope they swerve us
um,
by having secretly cleared Big E to return. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm. It may be hope against hope, but man, like, what a raw deal Big E got. Like, I
mm-hmm.
really hope that it's on their 10th anniversary that they. I hope it's a happy ending and not like, you know, let, let,
Yeah.
let me put it this way. I hope it's like Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose winning the tag belts right after Roman Reigns tells everybody he has to vacate the Universal title because his leukemia came back. Right after the belt, not 5 minutes later, right after the belt. I hope it stays in that moment. I
Right.
hope it stays in that moment and doesn't we don't swerve further down the line there. I would very much like that feel good moment for Big E, who has had a very, very rough couple of years between the injury, between losing Brody Lee. Like I feel like he deserves a win in life. And I
Mhm.
really, really hope that this is an opportunity to give him that win. Like, I mean, obviously, if he's been cleared, he knows already. But like,
Yeah.
to say that and let people know in that public way is so important in this business.
Yeah.
For not just for the business, but for the people in it.
Yeah.
So I hope that's what happens. But if that's not going to happen, then I guess the second best thing is to solidify a heel turn by freaking beating up the guy who's got a broken neck.
Yeah, I guess.
There's no better heel heat than that. It
Yeah.
sucks. I hate that that's the other option, but I mean, Bubba Ray will be happy
See, after that, we had a Bronson Reed promo. He just came out and called out Seth Rollins basically, and then they brawled. Because I guess we're
again.
still doing this. They had, by all accounts, a good match at Crown Jewel. So I don't know what's going on there. But it looks like they're still brawling. They could still actually be brawling, for all I know. Um,
And didn't they have the whole episode of Raw to brawl the other day, a
last
few
week,
weeks
yeah,
ago? Like,
that was one of the best episodes of Raw. They were just kicking each other's ass all episode. So I mean, I'm not
it's
against
like,
it. I just
dude, get it out
understand.
of your system,
Yeah.
dude.
Uh,
Either kiss or just do it. Like,
right. So then we had Damian Priest. We'll talk more about Bronson later. I'm kind of glossing over him right now because he's more important later. Damian Priest versus Lugu Kaiser was the next match. Big up there. These guys can work a match. Both of them can work, and they worked well with each other. Um, Kind of a down because now we're going into bloodline stuff. Sami Zayn's going around asking for a fifth man for War Games. So my prediction
well,
has
you
come
called it.
true. War Games is a 5-man team.
You
So
called it.
he's asking people. He asks Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins says no. So I don't like that he said no, but I didn't really like that he got asked in the first place. I don't think Seth Rollins is the guy for this, but we'll get back to that a little later.
I
You'll
mean,
see.
considering he'd be on the same team as Roman, can you really see him saying yes
That's
without
kind
a
of
big
what he said. He's like,
provocation?
I will not. He's like, I will not team with Roman Reigns. I hate Roman Reigns. That's basically what he told Sam.
Yeah.
But then later in the show, Solo comes up to him and he's like, well, we know you hate Roman, so why don't you join us as our fifth man? And he goes, I'm not going to team with Roman Reigns. So why would I team with a cheap imitation of Roman Reigns? And walks off. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's great. They're really playing up like Solo is now getting feedback from outside that he is not the chief he thinks he is. So they're
Yeah.
really playing with that insecurity of his. And I think that's going to be a big factor later on. Um, so let's see. Okay. Karrion Cross catches up to the Miz. Miz is apparently out of captivity.
I was gonna say, did they find him?
I guess they let him go. So then Karrion Cross catches up with him. We want to know where the Wyatts are. They drag him to the ring. They're about to put a beat down on him, and the Wyatt Six appears. And they start going after everybody, but it looks like they're trying to get to the Miz through Final Testament. They go after everybody, but then the Miz like turns around. Apparently, it's a big ruse, and the Miz really is with Final Testament, and he helps them lay out the Wyatt Six. So the Wyatt Six are laid out for the first time, proving straight up that this is not a supernatural thing. These guys are just weird.
Um,
And they are
so
human.
I guess the question is then like, why'd they let him go?
Don't know. They didn't answer.
Because like if they were just gonna come and beat him up again, they could have done that way more easily if they just never let him go.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
But
not
I mean, I
sure.
guess they are weirdos with their own agendas.
Yeah.
So
I still don't know exactly what their
uh,
agenda is. So then we had Jade and Bianca versus Liv and Raquel. Just kind of made the tag match on the night. Liv and Raquel kind of, playing on the who's going to turn on who thing and ending up with a match out of it. Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton kind of interfered, but Bianca and Jade still retained. It was a really short match. I don't know what's with these like short tag team matches that they do. But this was like the short one of the night. Usually, I guess they have like a longer women's match and a shorter one, or a couple of shorter ones. But this is one of the shorter ones. I'm not sure why they made this one of the shorter ones, since they're always trying to constantly promote and put Bianca and Jade on the screen. Which, of course, why not? They're stars.
well,
But also,
was it a dominant victory for them?
yeah, it's pretty. Well, I mean, there was some interference and stuff. So this mostly,
Mm,
it seemed like mostly a vehicle, like the Xavier Woods match.
yeah.
But I mean, but also the women's champions on this too, and then Nia Jax, who's the SmackDown Women's
Yeah.
Champion. So I guess we're gonna. I think we might be getting Raw versus SmackDown for the Women's Survivor Series. Um,
I
not sure
mean,
exactly, or maybe it's gonna be a War Games match. Also, I don't know how we're gonna do that. They haven't really said.
well,
Um,
Raw versus SmackDown, as the Canadians would say, as is tradition.
as is tradition, yeah. But that was pretty much it. The after the tag match was when they had the Seth Rollins telling Solo off, so that was pretty
Mm,
much the show. Wasn't a lot to it. This not like last week. Last week it was a banger show, but it was like stuff after stuff after stuff. This show, a little bit more time to breathe, a little less stuff in it, but good overall. Really, the only thing I didn't really like about this show is that Pure Fusion Collective is still called Pure Fusion Collective.
yeah. I mean, I've always been a big proponent of Sonya Deville. I think she's fantastic. And honestly, I think she would have gotten a bigger push had they not signed Ronda Rousey
Yeah, I think so too. I think
because
all the
she
MMA
would have
ladies
been
probably would have.
their MMA girl. And then not that long after that, they signed Shayna.
Yeah,
So, like, I mean, Shayna was there before Ronda, I think, but like she was in NXT doing NXT things. So,
yeah,
like Sonya, I think she was probably in line for a much bigger push a lot earlier, and then just a lot of stuff got in her way. So, at least for her sake, as a fan of Sonya's, at least this is going to give her something to do that
yeah.
doesn't require her to, you know, put on a suit and not wrestle like she didn't set out to do initially.
Right.
So
Well, I mean, like I said, I really like the stable. I just don't like the way they're named. I think they could come up with
yeah,
a better name than PFC. But yeah, that said, that leaves us time for the shine.
yeah.